Back in early days MMA, I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a lot of like standing in the center of the ring and brawling and fighting. It was just two brute force guys brute forcing each other, and it really made for a lot of really spectacular fights. And poker has really kind of followed the same trajectory, where in the beginning, early days, you saw a lot of these like 3-bet, 4-bet, 5-bet, 6-bet pre-flop hands. There's even a really famous hand with Phil Ivey where it's a flop play where Phil Ivey puts in like a 5-bet all in with complete air against someone who he correctly figured out was bluffing. And MMA has evolved a lot over this since its inception. And now, if you try to stand there in the center of the ring and just pound brute force someone, they're going to sit back. They're going to kind of break you down, look at for your weaknesses. They're going to wait for their moment and they're going to attack. A lot of players, I think, are still kind of stuck in the past. If you only know how to bet and raise to win chips, you leave yourself open to skilled opponents to pick you apart. And having a well-constructed checking range is not only a good defense, it can actually prove to be a good offense if your opponent is too aggressive. If we fail to think deeply about our checking range, we end up betting all of our strong and medium strength stuff, and our checking range becomes too weak. This is a very common leak in weaker poker players. Versus these players, we can overfold on the flop when they bet. Every time they check, now we can be aggressive. It also creates big problems on dynamic boards where they end up betting too many value hands and not enough speculative hands. When the board changes, these strong hands on the flop or turn become merely bluff catchers. And a good exploit here would be to just call with your draws versus bets and a lot of your weaker pairs, and then over bluff when the board changes. You mainly want to adopt this more passive strategy versus good aggressive opponents. And versus the weaker, more passive opponents, we can still just pound away. Let's say we have queen jack offsuit and we have 50 big blinds and the button calls. We go heads up to a flop. The flop is queen 7-5 rainbow. Now we have a good hand. We have top pair. We'll feel pretty confident that our hand is going to be best a lot of the time. But if we stop and take a moment and think about the type of opponent that's on the button, we're up against a good, aggressive, thinking poker player. When we play these types of opponents, this can be situations where we want to take a lot more of our hands and start checking and letting our opponents bet with weak hands, hands that have very little to no equity, value bet worse hands. We like to use a hand like queen jack here rather than a hand like king queen or ace queen, because king queen and ace queen, there's too much value in betting those. We're beating too many hands. And with our worst top pairs, we want to more consider checking because we don't give up as much equity. So traditionally, you might think you just need to bet your good hands to get money in the pot, which is kind of what we were speaking into earlier. But we sometimes forget that, by checking, our opponent is going to be putting in money for us, either in the form of bluffing or value betting worse hands. And so this would be an example of a situation where we could gain some EV by checking with a hand that on the surface feels like a hand that we would want to bet. So the tip here really is you really need to be very aware of the type of opponent that you're facing